Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Workload getting a bit out of hand. Now yesterday I had a good day. All that huge pile of bamboo, all those huge big, 4 or 5 metre long canes that I'd cut down previously, I cleared all that lot up yesterday. Basically it was a matter of really cutting the canes down to like a manageable size, and then what I did was I tied them with string into bundles that were manageable and carried them round to the front and stood them up in the corner of the carport ready to go in the car to go to the recycling centre. I won't be able to throw them in their tied up bundles because the string is not green, obviously. It's not biodegradable. That'll probably last about 20 years. It's a nylon based thing, so I have to take the scissors with me and snip the bundles and drop them in, so it's not a big deal. And what's left to do on the bamboo, I believe the hedge trimmer will deal with. That's cutting it down. It's still got to be cleared up because a lot of that will be smaller stuff that will have to be bagged. There won't be many long canes come down, a few sticking out the top but not many. So that's in the outdoors. There's the bamboo to do, and there's running round the patio with the strimmer just to do the cracks and sweeping up like a general tidy. So there's 2 jobs left to do in the garden, both of which I want to do prior to Hannah coming down. I don't want her having to get involved with the outside. Got enough to do inside. And then I was just going over and I thought my car's going in tomorrow to have the electrics looked at. What if he needs to keep the car? I can't be without the car this weekend or I can't get Hannah. So I phoned him up and cancelled and said, could I rebook it in for next week? He's on holiday. So I missed my chance. And what I plan to do now is I'm going to wait until next week, I think, to book the car in. And I'll go back to my original guy who was swamped at the time and see if he can fit me in next week. Next week I can spare the car, as long as it's not for too long, because I still need it for the weekend, Orchid Society meeting. So from somebody who hardly ever uses the car, I've now got a need for it nearly every weekend coming up. And the trouble is, when it's something that's an unknown problem, you don't know how long they're going to need, and then they might need a part and they might have to wait for that, So anyway, I cancelled the car, so that's that bit done. Jobs indoors, well, another outdoor job is I would like to do the outside of this conservatory, take the shade netting off and give the roof a wash off and the glass a wash off, just generally clean off the outside, get all this muck off the roof that comes off that tree. That needs to be done prior to tidying up the patio area, otherwise there'll be 2 lots of sweeping up to do, and I'd rather only have 1 lot of sweeping up to do, so one goes before the other. Then we've got the inside of this conservatory, which is quite a big job. We've then got the mould that's started on the walls around the inside, but that waits for Hannah to come down. She prefers to do that rather than let me do it because there's a lot of bending involved. It's skirting boards, so floor level and low down, that sort of stuff, so she'll probably do that. Upstairs it's a dust and a hoover. There's no tidying or anything to do, so upstairs is easy. Downstairs is not much different really. It's a dust and a hoover and a quick tidy round. Just put a few things away. Kitchen is okay as it is. I keep the kitchen clean, it's where I do food. So the list of jobs is quite large, but I've got the plan in place, utilising the days. Now obviously doing the outside stuff is weather dependent. Thursday sounds like it's going to rain. It sounds like a wet day. So that needs to be an inside job. So Thursday I plan on doing the inside of the conservatory. Tomorrow, now I haven't got to mess about with the car, I'd like to get both of the outdoor jobs done. cut down that bamboo, not clear it up. Hannah will help clear that up at the weekend. So just cut it down, just get the hedge trimmer out and take off what I need to make that look tidy. And then possibly, you know, have a go at the outside of this conservatory tomorrow. Thursday inside conservatory. That leaves me Friday to do, you know, things like dusting round and hoovering and just generally inside the house type stuff. And then when Hannah comes down, there isn't a huge amount to do. They'll be tidying up the bamboo outside. I might leave the sweeping up the patio bit till then, because again it's bending and picking it up and everything. Otherwise Hannah won't get much to do outside, and she likes to help with the garden. So I think there's enough time to get everything done. But somewhere in there I'll probably film some videos. Now this is 5 mounts that need dealing with. Now the first one is going to be easy because it's funny actually how things go. This is Dendrobium signatum, and the plant itself I believe is dead, but it has loads of Keikis, so the plant's not lost. So all I'm going to do with this is take the Keikis off, and this is simply twist. That's the easiest way. And if they show a lot of resistance, have a go at, see that cane's just rotted off, it's just come off in my hand. These should just twist off. If they show a bit of resistance, you might need the scissors. Now if they do that and shred, you're better off trimming that tidy, not potting it, because it'll only die. So there we have one nice tidy Keiki. Next one is a little one. That ought to stay on longer, but I want this done because I'm actually going to dump the plant. So that's 2. That one's already died, so we'll forget that. Look, see, these canes are just falling off. The plant is dead. So these Keikis are taking the last bit of energy out of the canes. So I think these will come on. These will grow on, and then I haven't lost the plant. Yeah, see, this cane's just broken off as well. That's all the cane's broken off now. Some of these have got more roots than others, but they've all got some roots, and they're going to go in a pot of sphagnum moss until I see signs of real growth in the pot, roots I mean. Right, so that's that lot, and we do have a tag for this one. So if I put a tag in with the Keikis, we won't get them muddled up, will we? And that's for the pile down under here. I suppose I better take the plant off, hadn't I? Oops. Yeah, if I don't take the plant off, it'll only rot, and you know, everything else will go wrong with it. So that plane sounds military to me and high. No, I think that, I don't know, I was just going to say that mount doesn't look very healthy, but I probably won't be using mounts again anyway. Right, so all that rubbish will go out together. So that's that one. Now the next one, to do something different, is this one with the really long name, the Mexicoa. And I'll have to do a pop-up for that. This just needs coming off the mount and going in a pot because it's not doing very well at all. It has grown 2 new growths, but they are small and weak, and hardly any new roots came off. So I think this will be a just in time. hasn't long been remounted. It's got hardly any active roots. There's some where that new growth has come out. We have got some new root growth, but it's not extensive. And the other thing is that bit of that plant looks as though it's separated. That's not joined on. So it's actually two plants. Well, let's get it over and done with then. There's one, and this is covered in scale, buried inside there, so that needs to be dealt with as well. Yeah, there's a couple of old bits of plant here. See, this is just separating. So this isn't one plant after all. So nice new growth coming on this piece, yeah, and the scale needs to come off. Well, that's one way of getting rid of the scale. Take the bulb off and then just treat what's left, which has got hardly any scale on it. But that's got a new growth, so that's a piece with a new growth. This has got a new bulb, which is producing new roots. And the bulbs on this piece are reasonably plump. They have got some scale on them, so it will need a clean up. Clean the scale off. I will just get the cotton wool buds. That bulb's not attached. Take that off. That's most of the scale gone as well. Looks like the bulbs have become detached. The bulbs that are detached are the ones with the scale on. So what's left is pretty clean. That's two. And this one here is the same thing. The oldest bulb is the one with all the scale on. And this is the one with the new growth. Not much to back it up, but it has got some new root growth. So there we go. So those three pieces, I'll stick them in that pot so they don't muddle up with anything else. Get rid of the mount. Coffee. What else then? Now this was a gift. Quite honestly, if this wasn't a gift, I'd have probably dumped it. But being a gift, I'd like to try and save it. And this is its last chance. It didn't do very well in a pot. It hasn't done very well on a mount. It has actually got a tag. So what we're going to do with this one is take the wire off for a start, and this is going to go in a pot because it's just not growing. Now this is a Cattleya type, so it was Sophronitis, it's now a Cattleya, but it's got a tiny new growth. That's it. These are desiccated bulbs and leaves, has no strength in it whatsoever, no decent roots. So when we get a new growth like that, we expect some new roots down the line, but this plant has no backup. That little growth has got no backup. So it's on its own, so it might not survive. But that's just going to go in some moss just to try and get it to root and get going. But it's not a strong piece at all. I'd be surprised if that survives. But we will give it a go. I don't think it will. There's no new roots. The old roots are dead. The plant is completely desiccated. Anyway, we shall see. So that one's got a tag. Chuck that in there. Right, this is another Cattleya type that is in a similar position. Obviously the canes should be quite large, yeah? And the last two growths have been very weak. They are desiccated, but there's still some plumpness in the actual canes. And it now has a new growth with new roots. But it's not staying on this mount because the last couple of growths that it produced on the mount are no good. They're weak. It didn't grow properly. It didn't produce root systems, so Although it's a cattleya and it should do well on the mount, it's not. So it's coming off carefully so as we don't damage those new roots. And this is another candidate. This went in the native live moss. Look at it. It's just totally disintegrated the roots on this plant. I was going to say, I really hope these roots don't get damaged pulling them off. They are fragile, and I don't know whether my scissors will cut that. I'm going to take that back bulb off because it's shriveled. Well, that's good. I haven't got any pink stuff. So what else have we got then? Dead roots, you can come off. Dead root. See, now that dead root there, if I'd gone back to the base and cut that off, I'd have cut this piece off. And this piece is probably alive. That piece round there isn't. Right, so that's just going to go in a pot of moss, just to get it going. See, look, that's not attached. So we'll take that off now. Just clean that joint a little bit, trim it. Right, so what we've got is a bulb with some slightly desiccated leaves and a new growth with new root growth. The new roots will push on, and I don't even know what that is. It's a cattleya of some sort, and it's probably now 3 years from blooming. So we've got a long wait to find out what that is. That's if it survives, obviously. So that's that one. Now this one is another dead plant with Keikis. This is Dendrobium tortilli. Now it's strange how this has gone full circle. This came from Alberto in Italy when he gave his collection up to move to England. He works in Kew Gardens with the orchids. That was worth coming to England for. Yes, so it was part of his collection, and when the plant arrived it was quite wilted. It wasn't very good, but it had 2 Keikis, and I planted the 2 Keikis and they grew on nicely, and these are they, that one and that one. These plants have now died and produced Keikis. So again, I'm saving the plant, hopefully, by removing the Keikis. Again, it was a gift. I don't want to lose it. It's a memory of somebody whose videos I enjoyed on YouTube. I actually met Alberto at Malvern. He was there with a friend, and he was just sat on a bench nattering, and I thought, I know that face. So I went out and had a little chat. He remembered me as well, which was good. Right, that's 2. So get the label off, the tag off. Oh, that's held on with wire. Use the wire cutters, not the scissors. Come on. Make life difficult, why don't you? Thank you. Right. Now. Yeah, I was going to say that one, is this one worth taking off, but it's got roots. Unfortunately, I will probably have to cut that root to get that to go down in the pot. Because again, that's just going to go in some moss. The other 2 tiny little Keikis are not worth, they're not worth trying to hang on to. We'll work with the larger ones. Can't remember whether this one, I think we did have a bloom or 2 on this one at the beginning of the year, I think. I can't really remember. Oh, this plant certainly attached. So it was was obviously happy on there at one point. Guess what went wrong? It came here. That's what went wrong. It didn't adapt. It didn't change over environments happily. And once it got here, it just went downhill. Which is a shame, but that's what I've had to put up with. That's what a lot of the problems are that are, you know, being dealt with this year. You know, they are as a consequence of plants not. I don't know why I'm cleaning this up. Chances of me ever using it again are zero. If I'm staying here and mounts don't do very well here, there won't be much going on mounted. There won't be many mounted orchids, will there? It's not going to happen. Right. So that's all the bits and pieces. Now, as usual, I shall have a tidy up, sort out some pots, get some media, and we'll get these lot done. As I said, several of them are going to be very easy because they're just going to go in a pot of sphagnum moss, but I'll need to get some soaking and everything, so I'll be back. Right, let's get this lot sorted. Now, ones that are just going in moss, I'll do them first because then they can be got out of the way, can't they? Got some moss soaking, so I put each one either in the pot they're going in or next to the pot they're going in, so that all the thinking was done earlier. Doesn't need doing again. Right, so these Keikis are just going in. This is very loose floppy moss. We just fluff it up, and then all we need to do is position these Keikis so that their base is all at the same height. Yeah? There's quite a few of these, so once I get them in there I will spread them out a little bit, although there is no real need to do that. Right, so that's the base is all at the same height. Now that root's going to have to come off. Hopefully it will branch, because it would have stopped the plants going in successfully. And then I'm going to hold these up in the air and add more moss. So I'm still holding them in position at the moment, so their bases are all at the same level. And we get some more moss in, and at the moment all the plants are in the middle of the pot. We get enough moss in that they're reasonably secure. There's a big hole in the middle there, which I will deal with now while I can see it. That's got it. And then all I'm going to do is just slightly separate them and put some moss down in between, so that it just gives them a bit more room. So I'm going to leave some of them in the middle. Leave a couple in the middle. Right, so very loose, very floppy, nothing sort of pressed down hard or anything. Plenty of air. Remember, these roots are aerial roots. They're not used to being wet. They get watered. When I watered the plant, I was pouring water over them, so that's not the same as being in a damp environment. So that's Dendrobium signatum. I'd have liked to have seen some blooms on that, but we will now have to wait for these to mature. 2 to 3 years, probably. Let's get that out of the way. That's one done. Right, another one that's going in moss. This one. And this is Tortilli. We've just got 3 here. Some quite long roots on there. I'll trim that one and that one because they stick out sideways. They'll stop it going in the pot, basically. So we've got 2 reasonable sized Keikis here and one very small one, but that doesn't mean to say it won't grow on. That root's too long as well. Well, that might seem a bit harsh, cutting roots off, you know, when they're Keikis like that, but these Keikis are in growing mode. They are growing actively, and part of that active growth is the roots, and there's root tips. So any roots that get damaged at this stage of their development will branch, providing it's a branching root system, which Most dendrobiums are, there's very few that aren't. And again, I filled the hole up in the middle, so that any roots that are near the centre of the pot have still got some moss. Right, separate them out a bit. So when you're doing this, it doesn't matter if you can see the base of the plant, as long as the root tips are in the media. That's the important bit, because that's where the growth is going to happen. Chances are with Keikis that are in this sort of stage, they're probably not going to produce any more roots from the base. But the roots that are there need to grow on, become acclimatised to growing in something damp, and I'll put that back in so that I know what they are, but I'll do a new label for that with my label maker when I get round to it. I'm starting to get pots full of Keikis. Trusting to memory which ones are which is not on, not now. I mean, over there's three lots of Keikis. There's the Berryoda that were given to Hannah. Those are coming on nicely. There are Keikis off of my Dendrobium Nesta. The main plant is lost, so they're important. Again, 3 to 4 years. And then what else is there over there? There's a pot full of the giant Keikis that came off of the No ID Nobly type hybrid that were massive. There's a whole pot full of them. So 3, but that's just a hybrid. If that one doesn't have a label, it doesn't really matter because it hasn't got a name anyway. Right, so that's that one done. Right, now we're looking at stuff that's actually going to get potted. Let's just get these roots out of the way. Don't want to pot those up, do we? Can't see them shooting a plant out at the top somehow. Now this is some media that was used before. This is my Let's Grow Some Roots media, which I've seen me use it often enough. So it's small bark, perlite and some moss. And it obviously had some leftover moss thrown in the top of the bag because there's a clump of moss at the top. Yeah. So just make sure the moss is chewed up well. Don't want giant bits, nice evenly spaced throughout the media. So small amounts of moisture in many places rather than large amounts of moisture in 1 or 2 places if you leave it as a big clump. So all nicely torn up into small pieces. Then it mixes in, becomes part of it. And if I move that onto that puddle of water, it can start hydrating the moss, can't it? Without getting it too wet. That's the puddle that came out of the moss. So I'm hoping that's more. There's only 2 more pots to do. They're small pots. We'll get the Cattleya No ID. I've got a feeling I know what that is, but until it gets to blooming I'm not sure. And it's a Cattleya that I bought from the president actually at Wessex Orchid Society at an auction quite a few years ago. And when I got it home, when I got round to repotting it, I cut one of the old manky back bulbs off and I was pretty convinced it had Fusarium. Well, I still think this might be it. And if it is, it's grown away from the Fusarium because the rhizome's clean. So that's good. So this is just going to get stood in, and a bit of media round where those nice new roots are, leaving it quite deep in the pot. And gently firmed, not, you know, not a load of pressure. I can still see a root. I want that in media. Right, so that's that one done. There's no identification on this, so again there's no point in doing a label for it. There's no point at all. But I am going to firm that down a bit more than that because it's wobbling, just to stop it waggling around. I think there's enough roots on there that that's going to get going. might well be okay now. And then this one is the big long name thing. I'm just going to have another look round here. Yeah, there are still some scale on there. I'm going to deal with them. So I just need some of that. Bit of alcohol. 70% rubbing alcohol. You need a tiny little bit, don't want to waste it. There's no point. And then just a cotton wool bud and just go over anywhere that's exposed. Now that little piece didn't really, it had one scale on it. And the other thing is, although this seemed to have a lot of scale on it, I'm pretty sure they're bodies as opposed to living organisms. I think they've long since died. They just haven't been removed. But you know me, I've got no problem with killing things twice. So I'm just getting the sheaths off. That's where, yeah, see there's loads inside of there. And those look like they have survived. Well, they're not going to survive this, that's for sure. It's not just the alcohol that does the dirty deed. It's actually the physical removal that's quite important. So it is quite important to make sure you get the sheaths out of the way. And then everything you can see. Now I can't guarantee I've got every single one, but there'll be very, very few left if there are any. Now what about this bit? I think this bit's quite clean as well. Yeah, this bit looks okay. Just go around the base where the sheaths are. The alcohol sort of makes the sheaths wet, and then you can rub them off with the cotton wool bud. They just sort of disintegrate. It looks like this. See, this is what you miss. Right on the tip of that leaf is one scale. Now that could be a female with 50 eggs inside of that sheath. Well, I said could be, it isn't anymore. You've got to make sure every one you can see, make sure you get every one. Miss none. And even having said that, you will miss some. And they will probably come back, and they will maybe need a spray later down the line. Right, right under my nose, out the way. Right, so what we've got here is 3 pieces, all that's got root growth, that has just about got some signs of root growth, and that one hasn't because the new growth is tiny, so that hasn't had a chance to get any roots going yet. And all 3 of those have got to be sat in the pot. They're all going in the same pot obviously, but I will position them in such a way that they've got room to grow outwards away from each other. In other words, new growths pointing out, plants in the centre. That way you can hold them all at the same depth, like that, and then just feed the media in. So I want all these in the middle of the pot basically, and then the new growths will hopefully move outwards towards the edge of the pot, and they'll have room to grow. Oncidium type, so doesn't need compacted media or anything like that, it just needs media to hold it in place. Oh. A message on my phone. Isn't it funny how you get companies that think they're doing a nice thing and think they're doing you a favour when in actual fact they're just making a nuisance of themselves. When I got my Virgin cable for my Wi-Fi here, because it's the best you can get, it's a direct fibre optic cable straight into the house from the road, so you know, there's no copper wires involved, and it's fast and everything, and I like it. And when I took the deal, they said, do you want a free SIM card for your phone? I said, well, actually yes, because I own my phone, so there's no rental or anything getting paid, so that makes my phone totally free. Thank you very much. And that's been like that ever since. Now, the mobile side of Virgin Media has moved to O2, which quite honestly probably has better coverage and stronger signals if you're into the 4G and 5G stuff. So, you know, sounds good, doesn't it? Except now I get a £6 bill from O2 for my free SIM, which is refunded on my Virgin Media bill of £0. So I'm going to get a credit of £6 and a plus of £6, which I have to pay. So that's really done me a favour, hasn't it? Wonderful. So as I say, whereas I've never had a bill, it's always been £0, I've now got a bill and it needs paying. They do get on your throttlies sometimes, these, you know, takeovers, mergers, whatever you want to call it. And that will probably be something about that, which I will get round to in a minute. Right. So there we go. That is that little session. So effectively that's 2 potfuls of Keikis and 2 things planted up. And for those of you who are screaming that I've forgotten one, I haven't forgotten it. I've decided not to bother planting it because it's not going to grow. I've got enough experience to know that a tiny little growth on a totally desiccated plant is doomed. It's just not going to make it. And it's not worth the effort because it's just too far gone. So that's why that one's missing. Right. So there we go. That's today's video, messing about with taking stuff off of mounts or taking Keikis off of plants because the plant on the mount has died anyway. So that's where we are with that. I haven't finished with mounts, but that's everything I plan on doing for now. So there's still a little bit. And I've now got so few mounts that when we come round to dealing with getting the lights going, end of September time, the mounts that I've still got will all fit on one rack. Which means I've got a rack that's not in use anymore. That might be a good thing to strap a light to. See you next time. Bye for now.